Let us get right into the scripture. 1 Corinthians 15 verse 12. Now those of you that don't have notes in front of you, if you want the notes, please just go to send an email to info@dynamicministries.com and request the notes. We send them out either on a Wednesday or on a Thursday prior to the service. And it would be nice for you to go through that, because there's a lot of additional information, quotes from different parts of the Bible, as well as commentaries, and just as I make my study, I do these notes. I never used to do them like this in detail. I would study them, jot them down, and just use them for myself to preach, but I've decided to make it available for all of you, because you can be a pastor that want to teach someone, and you want to teach your leaders, and then you have this, and it just saves you a lot of work, and also gives you a head start, so that when you put in your time into study, you will even see more than what I have put down here. Okay, 1 Corinthians 15:12. Now if Christ be preached that he rose from the dead, how say some among you that there is no resurrection from the dead? Now those of you that follow these teachings, you would say, but Bertie, have we not already passed that? We are in verse 19. We're supposed to go to verse 20. Yes, but you know, in this week as I was reading up, I just realized that there is so much more, and I would like to just give the historic setting wherein 1 Corinthians 15 was written, so that we can understand why it would be possible that people would go and say that there is no resurrection. Because we find that there were people, according to verse 1 here, that have received the gospel, and then they turned away from the gospel. And we today look back and think, you fool, how can you ever have done that? That is impossible. It is impossible for somebody that has received the message to ever turn away from the message. That cannot be. But let me just explain to you the situation and the background wherein these people lived. The first point that I want to look at, you will see there in your notes, is the Greek beliefs on account of the Hellenization and living, and the point is that they would want to live in peace with what other people also believed. So back then, before Christ came, it was basically a Greek world, then it became Roman, and this Greco-Roman world was flooded with Gnosticism. Now, Gnosticism was basically the belief that all matter is evil, and that man would attain unto, that man is actually a spirit, and that this spirit then, after man has died, will be delivered from the body and live in a better state. That was the I would say the biggest belief back then. Was a Gnostic way of belief. There were many others as well, but I believe that was the biggest influence. Now, imagine that you are in a world where most people believed that there is no such a thing as resurrection. If you go and read the poems of Homer and all those things, and you read the history of that time, you will find that there was consensus about one thing, and that is that nobody ever gets back from the dead. That was something they agreed on. They disagreed on the gods, they disagreed on all the ceremonies, there were so many things they disagreed on, but there was one thing that there was consensus about, and that is, once a person has died, he never comes back from the dead to live forever. That is impossible. It was not believed. Now, in the Roman setting, we have to understand that because they came and colonized so many places in which there were all different religions, it was difficult to come to and to accommodate a religion which was against all the others. So if you come and say that there is a resurrection from the dead, you are already against everyone. And back then, in these times, They hated the Christians in their teaching of the resurrection, because you need to understand that the Romans, if they've crucified someone, they've declared him an enemy of Rome. They've declared him cursed. They would take their bodies and throw it on a heap where the ravens could eat it. They were absolutely cursed. Now, in this Roman world, if you would do anything against Rome, you were facing death. You would be jailed, tortured, and most probably killed. Now imagine in this world setting, and this is the second point I want to make. The first point is they wanted to live in harmony with other beliefs. Don't want to always be the odd one out. If they could easily incorporate the resurrection into saying, well, this is now how our spirits are raised and actually then go to heaven in the higher world. So they could find common ground. The second thing is, let me just get back to the point, which would make it easier for them to live. The first point is an easy life. We don't fight with people. Fighting all the time, differing from everybody, and you stand for this message of the resurrection. It was difficult. Secondly, should you declare that someone that was crucified by Rome is now king? He's raised, and now he's king. What are you actually saying? You are saying to Rome that they are powerless, that they could not kill your king, and that he physically rules over them, and that he is the king. Now, Caesar wouldn't take it to say that there is any other king. So immediately you were setting yourself up to a place where you were to be put into death and persecution. Persecution, torture, and death frowned upon by saying that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead. So you find that people and would easily be influenced because the fear of death, the persecution of your children, and so forth, would be in the subconscious mind of people. And then you would find the Sadducees, you would find these Greek philosophers, people that get saved, and after they got saved still didn't get rid of their Hellenistic beliefs and Gnosticism, and bringing that into the church. One can understand that. Like I said, you would stand against Rome. You would basically take the power out of the hand of Rome, because Rome threatened people with death. And now you come and you say, well, we've conquered death. And if you go and read history, you will find that, especially in this time, when anybody came with something that would make people not afraid of death, then Rome would be against that. Because if people aren't afraid of death, they can do anything. And we've seen that even in our modern day history. If you're not afraid to die, anything can take place. Anything can happen. So the background of this whole scenario in Corinth was that there were a lot of persecution, a lot of wrong beliefs out of which people came. Another point I want to bring in here, the people that preached that Jesus was raised, some of them has now already died. I think that would bring a big thing to people's mind on, was our interpretation of the resurrection then wrong? We talk about the Roman persecution, and we talk about wanting just to live in peace with everybody. I think that creates a good enough platform that it might be possible that some people might say that there is no resurrection. And in the light of what Paul is teaching here, we can find that there will be people that say there is absolutely no bodily resurrection and no resurrection of the Spirit. And then there would be a group, if you read the history here, that would also say and redefine the resurrection. And that we can go and read further on when they asked Paul, you might say, but with what body will will the resurrection be? Because they thought that this body would be a spirit and not a physical body. And that is a little bit of the background which I thought would be interesting for you.